Well, hello there, everybody. Yeah, we were talking.
Yeah.
As I said, there's a pre-show that it's quite interesting. But welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. We know that you have a lot of choices that you can do with your time because that is the most, I say, precious commodity that we all hold is our time. So for you to be sharing it here with us, that's very special. So thank you. It is Thursday, so this is when I have the pleasure of getting together with Michael and Cindy from Evolutionary Energy Arts, where we really kind of get to talk about things that y'all's channel really kind of focus in on, and some of mine that, is a little more, I don't know, theological, philosophical. I don't think it has it. Anyway, something like that. So. If you're here, then you have fulfilled your destiny. Congratulations, and we appreciate that. Uh, so speak favor over us because favor counts. No matter what your beliefs are, how you look at it, never hurts to have a pocket full of favor. And as I like to say, nothing missing, nothing broken. That's shalom. That is peace. And good mental and spiritual health is to be kind to your mind and soul. So, hello, Mike and Cindy. How are y'all?
We're great. We're
Good,
great.
good. Just put up a video. The chicken house is done. And
Congratulations. How are the
yes,
chickens doing?
well,
They're still right here.
they're
Yeah,
still
Oh,
right
we have to get
here.
the electric fence hooked up to
Yeah,
keep the predators away because, like
yeah,
last night, there was another fox at like 6 o'clock in the front yard. And so there's all sorts of predators. They won't get into the coop, that's really secure. And then we have the mesh, the half-inch mesh around the run, but we want to put the electric fence on for added security.
yeah.
Um, they have to go over a fence to get into the backyard, which they could do, but then most of them are afraid of Rama and Sita.
Yeah, we feel they'll be pretty safe. We just want that electric fence up just to be extra sure.
yeah, it's the old expression, better to have something that you don't need until if you need to have something that you can't get.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So,
yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
occupied a lot of our time, but we've been, doing a lot of other stuff too, our usual things, all the energy work, Vedic astrology. This is part of what we get the pleasure of do is interact with so many of our family members,
Yeah,
that we've known for so long.
yeah.
But yeah, doing the homesteading thing too, because you could obviously see the writing on the wall with the way things are going, gas prices, food prices keep going up, and
The technocracy that's going on. How do you want to live? What sacrifices are you going to have to make? Can you make? Some people can't make certain sacrifices. So it's a time where we're doing our best to be as self-sufficient as we can be, and we're in a different category than other people who are completely sufficient, and we're just doing the best we can with what we got.
And a lot of the listeners, they live in either, suburban environments or, densely populated urban environments. And those are the ones that I think about because, they are heavily dependent upon a distribution system
Hmm.
that if it has a hiccup or breaks down, the the consequences of the cause and effect is, you know, much more amplified.
They're great. Yeah, especially in
absolutely.
those areas. The best you can do if you don't have a way out of those areas is to make friends with your neighbors, make friends with the farmers that are outside of town because you have a head start. At least you know what's coming. So you have a minute to make friends and acquaintances and build fences and so at least you have the awareness.
It's just like with this place, when we saw this place pop up, I wasn't really intending on going anywhere. I was settling in where we were previously, but when you get to know an area after you lived there for a little bit, then you could see what would be more advantageous. And literally, the edge of our property is less than 100 feet to one of the biggest lakes in the state. And yet it's a lake that hardly anybody's ever there. It's big, it's just stocked with so many fish. So worst case scenario, if we could grow some fruit and veggies and things like that, get eggs from the chicken, if we could just catch a fish or two, we're fine. It will be fine. We'll scoop by, and I think that's where we're heading into. I don't think things are ever going back to what they were. They're not. If people are thinking, oh, well, we'll go back to that pre-2020 reality, that's not happening. They're still moving straight forward with their agendas. And a big part of that agenda is exactly what you're talking about, forcing people to make a choice technologically what they will allow into their lives and maybe even into their bodies.
Yeah, where we're seeing it on a mass scale. I mean, the title of it is, the fusion of human and machine, and it's happening. It's probably more advanced in the progress than most of us give credit to because whether you believe in nanotechnology, whether you believe in, that AGI really does exist and has really emerged out. Um, and then to add even more to that, we've got this thing coming from Trump. He is making a big deal about. There's been a lot of what would be called um, background preparation, preparation, yeah, preparation of this big announcement. And I thought I would read something that was real interesting. Colleen sent this, and I thought it is like so prevalent to the moment. So, I've been doing this study on daemons and demons. So I saw the interview where J.D. Vance said that he believes aliens are demons.
Hmm.
So keeping that in as the context of about what I'm about to read here. So it says recent reports emerging in 2026 suggest that a small group of American evangelical leaders were privately briefed by U.S. intelligence-linked officials regarding upcoming significant disclosure about unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, and non-human intelligence. According to claims from these pastors, the briefing aimed at to prepare church leaders for a massive UAP disclosure that could challenge traditional Christian beliefs. Key details of the reported briefings as of May 2026 are as follows. The content. Pastors reported being told of imminent releases concerning craft, non-human material, and reptilian-looking creatures, which they described as sounding out of a sci-fi movie. Purpose. The government officials allegedly instructed pastors to prepare their congregations to avoid mass abandonment of the faith, and to handle the shock of the revelations. Three, the concern. Evangelical leaders like Perry Stone warned that if the government claims aliens are our creators, it could lead people to believe the Bible is mythology. Timeline. These briefings followed a February 2026 directive by President Trump to the Pentagon and Department of War to declassify long hidden UFO files. Pastors' warnings. Some pastors who allegedly received this information are now warning their congregations to prepare and stay rooted in their faith, with some arguing the aliens are in fact demons or a deception or both. The government context, these claims emerged following President Trump's directive at releasing the files. Now, for full balance of here, there is some claims in dispute of did this meeting take place and what, if it did, what was being said. Um, Says, for instance, Pastor Larry Ragland apologized after Republican Congressman Eric Burleson disputed a claim that a powerful member of Congress called into a meeting to say aliens invented Christianity. Burleson stated he did not know the origin of UAPs and was merely speaking to a group of theologians. And then once again, the whole thing that remember J.D. Vance, which I think is just merely laying the groundwork for eventual full disclosure that aliens are demons.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's interesting to see it all. We're in times that a lot of us knew were coming, and here they are. They are here. This is the year. It's really pretty wild. It's yeah, it is exciting, absolutely. And can't believe too, though, of all that, the part about like openly admitting reptilian beings, that's the one thing that might hit me as a little bit surprising. But I think there is a lot of distortion because I do think a lot of the stuff that we might perceive as being done to humans is sometimes really from those that are more human looking, like the Pleiadian looking Anunnaki, and it's a tangled web. It's a tangled web out there. There's many different beings. Now we always knew this, besides just in the dark age of which we've just stepped out. And so it's coming back. I
I
mean,
think if people debate that I think we're just merely blacked out the shades and we opened up and it's a God, it's still dark out here.
yeah, and some people are going to want to shut them
So let
again
me
right
ask
away.
y'all, because this is a big deal. I mean, you have a radical shift in Catholicism. You have a pope now who is considered to be part of the Black Popes. You have a shift in theology, much more openness with homosexuality, bringing them into the fold, and that this was Christ's message was to be all inclusive. Then you have this supposed rift between Trump himself or the administration and the Vatican. And at the same time, you have Trump surrounded by what many would say are evangelicals of a Pentecostal nature. So really a lot of dynamics. Now, if in fact disclosure is coming, and the announcement's going to be, yes, we don't know what these craft are. Yes, we've, you know, apparently recovered crashed vehicles. This is not man-made. And oh, by the way, they're reptilian.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, if that is what comes, that's a huge blow to the psyche. And as
Yeah.
a former Christian, I've always been puzzled, so what would cause the great falling away?
See, when you were reading that about, the great falling away, to me, that is Orthodox Christianity, Constantinian Christianity. To me,
Hmm.
that is the great falling away. It's been that entire time since the birth of organized Christianity to now that's been the falling away. Because if you just even look at it, and the whole world's led astray, two-thirds of the world comes from the Abrahamic tradition. Obviously, the Abrahamic tradition is what's led the world astray. It should be just so obvious to me. But that's also because I realized way, way back as a teen studying the Bible, it was like it just hit me like the only way all this makes sense is if it is extraterrestrials, ultra dimensional beings. And then it really hit me as to how terrifying that reality is. Because when you look at, the day of the Lord, you don't look forward to the day of the Lord. Now, if that's the creator that's full of love for his children, you would look forward to it. If Yeshua, Jesus, literally himself was coming back, we would look forward to it. I mean, he was a great guy, right? But if it's the Old Testament God, no, you don't want that coming back. You don't. And when you just look at the source materials and recognize that everything that's Lord, Adonai, it all was really coming from other names that now we're familiar with. Marduk, Enki, Enlil, Ninhursag, Ningishita, all these different entities in the Sumerian texts, which clearly show that they're not the creator of this universe. They're just really the creators of the system that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, yeah. And that system is being challenged, particularly my whole thing theologically is how, could this Jesus character, who I used to pray to, you know, I really thought I had this personal relationship with him because I never questioned the story. I accepted
Mhm.
it at face value that, hey, if the dude's up in the pulpit, and the word pulpit means to be pulled into the pit, is speaking to me that this Jesus and this Father love me. And, the only way that it's going to work out is that someone has to pay the price. And so the sacrifice was made. But the problem is that when you begin to study the Bible, and particularly, at a college level where they get into heavy theology, um, the disconnect is A, I don't know who the Old Testament God is. Um, the Jews don't even know. They lost the name of God when they went into captivity into Babylon. So this is history. And then you find out that there's a history before the story, before there was even an Abraham.
Mhm.
And in that story, before the story that is now dominated here, there was no Jehovah, there was no Yahweh, there was no Elohim. They didn't exist. There's nothing in the tablets or the cylinders or the scrolls that ever give reference to who and what we now perceive to be God.
Yeah, so you look to the understanding of the Masoretes and what they were doing. They were constantly revising. Monotheism was completely fabricated.
Mm.
It was a political system used to create an understanding of where we came from that's all about misguiding us and taking us down a path that leads us away from the truth. Because they were trying to hide the fact that these gods were entities that utilized us as slaves, resources, food, all that. And they weren't in general too nice to us. When you look at the mythologies, they were always looking at
We
humans as
always got
bullshit.
the crap end of the stick, so to speak.
They do.
Exactly,
They do.
exactly. So
Just saying,
they,
I'm being very couth about it. Yes, I went to Miss Manor School. Uh,
there's a lot coming out now too that are viewing it as a complete twist to bring about the Zionist goal. The recreation of the state of Israel as a political identity that then will, after the current system destroys itself, in some people's minds, it'll be the dominant political, the only political force left. And
I sure
it's
hope not.
I know.
I mean, seriously, they talk about the building of the third temple. Um, you know, Boy, if that's the case, we're all screwed, blued, and tattooed out of here. Um, but I'll get back to this disclosure thing. So, what's the end game? I keep asking myself, so what's the purpose? I mean, you're going to bring a cultural shock to a religion that dominates the world.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking to myself, so what's the end game? So what comes next? All right, they make disclosure. We finally know that our government is just opening up the kimono, so to speak, and says, yep, they've been here all along. They're smarter than us, but they want to make a deal with us.
Yeah, all right. That doesn't sound right, does it?
I'm nervous already because,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I view it like, now that we're in another era and we're really just starting to understand things. they are going to have to tempt us, and they could do it in many different ways. After being so toxified by the food, the water, everything, you know, um, it's obvious that now they'll be offering technology. That's what they're going to do. Hey, they want a few things from us, but in return, they're going to give us a cure for cancer, a cure for this, cure for that. The next plague upon the land, we were talking about that in a Patreon members exclusive. They'll have the technology to clean up all the plastic waste because they've done all this before. So I think like with Elon's all about playing the good cop, and then they're going to want people to volunteer to serve them, and again stay in the system because I really think it's like if we want to use the analogy of the sheep pens are open, the flock can't escape. We're actually coming to realizations where we understand, wait a minute, there's more out there, and there's other beings out there. Maybe we should interact with some new beings. But then again, I do think that the ones that they show us at first will be the ones that have been controlling us and manipulating us, trying to get a head start and just trying to get us to sign on board. A lot of kids will probably be like excited. What if they had joint ventures with Space Force? Maybe, again, Trump and Space Force. Remember, that was one of the first things he did in the first 4 years, put that into existence. I think he's always been about getting us ready to volunteer to work with the system, to join the Draconian Empire or however we want to, Nibiru and Anunnaki forces openly and willingly, not knowing all the possibilities that are coming.
Boy, I tell you, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, well, this is suspiciously coincidental that we're suddenly making disclosure when the Earth is in fact, the coordinates has came out today. This pole shift is speeding up. And that means the magnetic poles are getting closer and closer to eventually where we're going to be on our side, literally. Um, so all of a sudden now we have disclosure now, and to be fair here, governments like Brazil, Venezuela, France, others have basically opened their files and said, yeah, there's something here that is beyond us.
Mhm.
Our military couldn't contain it, couldn't corral it. So it's kind of already here. We've been just waiting for Big Brother to make the announcement, and apparently he is. So I've been amongst these people, and you're going to talk about um, fanaticism. I mean, when you come against people's God and you inject a counter image to that, that's upheaval. And it could potentially have rippling effects all within our society and our culture.
Mhm. Well, yeah, because belief has been weaponized, in my opinion. The
Sure, I mean, if Vance is saying they're demons,
Yeah,
you've already established the board game now.
yeah, yeah, all because our
So I
belief.
want to be a part of God's army.
Yep,
I want to
Yeah.
be a part of
yep.
J.D. Vance and Donald Trump's army of God, bringing back religion. And if there are, in fact, these aliens that are more reptilian, they're smarter than us, then I'm going to go out and become one of that number, Michael, you were just talking about. I want to volunteer to be a part of the system.
Yeah, they'll sell us in a patriotic manner. I'm sure they're going to tell us that, we all know they're going to tell us about a threat, that's coming. But I think that the threat is really the help. This is part of the everything is upside down, inside out, because we've been under that, control. It's just that this is why they switched partially to um, covert manners as opposed to overt. Like in the
Hmm.
all those Sumerian reliefs, I mean, you see the ones where humans are tied, and they're coming up again to this giant, and the giant is decreeing their fate, off with their heads, whatever. It's the way it was in the past, but for whatever reason, could be just, that they found that they could get more production out of humans if humans think they're doing it for themselves. I mean, how many of the jobs today still relate in some way, shape, or form to raping the planet and taking all the natural resources, which they obviously don't care about? I mean, the pollutions and the energies that we utilize are some of the filthiest energies with the most toxic, byproducts.
Yeah, and you mentioned just a minute ago that, there would have to be a trade-off, a buy-off of us, and one of those would be the cure of disease. Well, the consequence to that is that you're putting out the pharmaceutical industry would be absolutely devastated. So investors would lose trillions of dollars. The healthcare system in itself, because it's built upon the predicating of victims, making people diagnostics and what have you, that all this does is just add to their profit. Um, Wow, that would be a radical shift in, again, well, I don't need to go to the doctor anymore. I don't need these pills. I don't need this prescription each and every month. That means I'm no longer a slave to that. So then what are they going to do? Is this cure going to be conditional and tied to what? A
Hmm.
potential credit score or social credit score of how my loyalty is being observed?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's the thing that's coming, is that social credit score. I'm sure they'll have all sorts of things they're tied into. I think the thing we have to realize is, whenever a part of the system no longer serves them, they will torch it completely. And I don't think there's any kings or queens that they really care about. That's how we know that the real controllers are not the ones we see. And that's part of what people are waking up to now, recognizing some sort of shadow government. And when you take it a step further, it looks pretty obvious that they're not only from here, because they don't care about destroying the planet at all. But you can see the signs, because they are getting ready to sacrifice um, even that which is what we would call the WEFers, WEF, and that whole side of things. Will Fauci and will Bill Gates again ever truly get tried? They might, but then again, we wouldn't know if it was a clone or the original or not the original. The original could be off planet somewhere, if it
Well, I
even
think that
exists.
I give and it's just my hypothesis here, but I think there's foundation to it. See, I think they've already made a deal with the tech titans. I think they've
Mhm.
provided them the technology of, I have a couple of, I'll share this with you right quick. See, I think that this is just one step in the full disclosure. So, we have this one that says humans could forge a hybrid consciousness by merging artificial life, Oxford scientists say. Then
Mhm.
you've got this one that says, could humans merge with AI to become super intelligent? My point to all of these stories, futurists predict a point where humans and machine become as one. So the point to all that is that I think they've already given to the elites the ability to merge their consciousness into an artificial construct.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
And
they want,
that's how they bought the leaders off.
yeah, yeah. I think so too. I think there's plenty of tentacles already, in and stuck to people. I think they're coming up with the neuro link is going to be very important to this process, because I think there's certain humans that they want to work with are going to need to be up to speed with these reptilians who already have all of this technology. And the only way humans can do that is if they're hooked up to the Borg with the Neuralink. Then they can work with the reptilians if they want to stay alive, you know. What if you don't want to hook up to the Neuralink? What if you want to do something different? I think, yeah, they'll probably have a special place for us here on the planet somewhere. Hopefully, maybe we can just stay kind of isolated and secluded in our own little areas. But they always talk about the separation. Is this that separation where you simply cannot tolerate the thought of being hooked up to a Borg type of situation where your thoughts and feelings could be controlled? I think what we offer them is an energy source of some kind where they can leech that off of us because they've allowed us to be here for so long. Obviously, these are beings who do not mess around, who have the ability to wipe us out if they wanted to, but they haven't. They haven't. So we have something they need, obviously, but what it is, I don't know. I don't know exactly. My best guess, it's something to do with our Kundalini energy.
Yeah, I still get the sense that it's a game to them.
Ultimately, yes.
You know, we're a sport.
Ultimately,
Yeah,
That's
because
what we are.
they're
And
doing worlds. They're conquering
yeah,
worlds. We're just
yeah.
a small little,
And listen, it
small,
only takes one politician, one act of a legislative body like Congress that would make it a class one felony for any human, any American citizen who does not sign up or take the interface, that's all it takes. And then within a stroke of a pen, all of us become outlaws. We
yeah.
become now the hunted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
I just don't see, the sitting around passing the pipe with the reptilians and singing love songs with the
yeah.
guitar. I don't
I
see
don't.
that, you know? I wish that the movie Paul was true because Paul was pretty cool. I mean, he had the government stuff, the really good pot, but no, no, I don't see that. I see this as I get the mental impression that there are collars around us and we're hooked by chains to each a part of our appendage. I
Yeah.
mean, they got us by the short hair, so to speak.
Unless, so let's just open the door for just a minute. Because we were created, we do have the reptilian part of our brains.
The
We are
body is.
part of them in a DNA sense. Maybe there's some kind of karma that they're aware of that we are not, where they have to allow us to be to some level or it affects them because they know a lot more than we do. Like our chickens can't predict what we are going to do to them. They're just chickens. They're just down there. So in a way, we are kind of the same. We can't really predict what they're going to do to us because they're far more advanced. So maybe it won't be that bad. I mean, with our chickens, we're not going to eat them. We're going to put them in a very nice home that we made for them.
But you're the
I
exception to the rule.
hopefully we'll have a lot of exceptions to the rules as our
And
overlord.
history has shown they have not been nice to us.
That's right.
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you got the fallen angels, I mean, these supernatural interdimensional beings come down and take female women
Yeah.
and, alter our DNA. They inject a foreign DNA into our bloodstream. Then you've got the attack, if you believe in the myth of the Tower of Babel, where they came down, divided us for all the rest of our path going forward. They just never seem to be, they don't play fair. They don't play nice.
No.
No, and like what Cindy was talking about, again, it's the body that they altered. They altered our vehicle, but the real us is beyond that. So they didn't create our souls. That's the thing that gets confused because people will take, if you're just looking at the Bible, then you're gonna probably get the impression that your soul was created when your body was created. That's not the case. The soul precedes the body, and everything is top down, so to speak. So, a fifth density consciousness wants to have a 3D experience. It creates a template in the astral in the 4D, and then ultimately you have the body build with the sperm and the egg and the cellular mitosis going on, but it's top down. So who really created you and guided your body? It's ultimately you from a higher dimension, but they've altered the vehicle that was here on Earth. They were different vehicles. They added, a lot of their own DNA and their own negative tendencies into us. And in fact, we may be one of the biggest experiments in the galaxy or in our universe for sure.
I think we're a conundrum to them.
Yeah, and where it comes to the soul, Jewish Kabbalism teaches that it is the Hall of Gaul. And within the Hall of Gaul, there is a certain limited souls.
Mhm.
And their belief is, the prophecy says that when the last human soul is born, that's when the great change comes in, because every human born after that will have no soul.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting because like I always look at everything Kabbalah as curious and interesting, but I don't trust it because it's coming from, in my mind, it's ultimately coming again from the controllers um, through different people. Some people share more information than others would like to have out there. But I definitely don't trust anything coming from certain roots. Um, but I do understand that. I think again, each one of us is just a unique fractal of source, just like light from the sun. There's so many different rays coming off the sun, but there are other things that are in play as well. And, souls that could incarnate, many channelers have gotten that when Tiamat was destroyed, and then before the recreation, there was a lot of souls hanging around. Like, what do we do now? This is where they were incarnating, and the planet itself was destroyed. And then, that which we call the Galactic Federation came together. Just really, it's not like a military organization. It's just a bunch of benevolent beings from all over. Kind of think of how Yoda in Star Wars could feel when a planet was destroyed. He would feel that, feel all those souls and pain and anguish. I think when they were showing us that in the Star Wars series, the Death Star and then Star Killer Base, that's real. I mean, that is what really happened in the Lyra and Draco Wars. Might still be happening to this day. I think some of that weaponry is out there, could be aimed at us right now. But I think there are other beings that won't let that type of thing happen again from the higher densities. And yeah, they do have more technology, although this is not perhaps their home base. They are looking out for us, and that's what we would again call real angels and stuff.
And I think, well, in fact, in the documents I was covering yesterday, we have a false perception. I don't think these wars are over. We see things limited to a human lifespan. These beings are not limited to human lifespan. Their lifespan goes into billions of years, where I believe that we're in a war that has not ended. It has been ongoing for epochs.
Mhm.
And it's always fascinated me about, when this new God entered into the scene, which we now call the Abrahamic beliefs, so specifically Christianity. And I always thought it was interesting that when the apostles were going out to evangelize, and it said that they were restrained by the Holy Spirit from going into Indonesia, going into India, going into the Far East. And nearly a decade ago, I did a video on ancient writings that said that there were 10 gods that came to this planet and they divided the planet up.
Hmm.
amongst the 10 gods. And that this god of the region that we call Judea was a rebel, came in and established his own position above the other nine, and that their plan is that they knew that it would eventually cave within itself. But he's a very pissed off individual, very angry, so who knows? Because
You know,
again, go ahead, hon.
well, I'm just thinking that there's so much that we don't know. We don't know what we don't know, but I guess we do have to look at the 3D stuff and say, okay, this is our reality. And it's a harsh one. And I think it's about trying to prepare people for that harshness, because if you prepare for what you do know, then hopefully if there are good things out there, that's going to help soften the blow. I think there's just so much that we don't know, and it's hard to really fathom what is it going to feel like when they do come out on the media. And even us that do know about the reptilians, you it's one thing to talk about buying a cow or buying a goat or getting a new car. It's another thing to actually get the thing. It's a whole nother world when you get the thing. So when we do know and they do come out and say all these things, then even our perceptions may change with new information.
Yeah, I think it's clear, Trump, his purpose is to introduce what we would call the Antichrist. I was thinking he's John the Baptist in some ways, in this go round, so to speak. And so I think he's all about selling us on one group because, like you said, there's different groups. You have the 10 gods, you have all these different myths. They always say the earth was divided amongst these other beings. Ultra terrestrials, covers everything. And yeah, what's his name? Oh, the angry astronaut was just trying to debunk. Some people say, oh, there's really 90% of the UFO sightings are in the US. That's because it's all US military tech. But why are? Because there are sightings everywhere,
They're all over
but
the world.
but they can be different too. I mean, we do see certain ones more prevalent in certain areas, and it could be because these different areas are literally controlled by other ultra terrestrials than say the U.S. How about China? Well, for one, you could look at the countries that have an eagle, which could be an eagle, it could be a phoenix, but basically avian as their symbol, something avian. Obviously, the U.S. with the eagle. Russia had an eagle. They also had a two-headed one going farther back, the Roman Legion eagle, and then China, it's a dragon. And it's interesting to note that. So it's China even has the legends of the Dragon Kings, and so that's interesting. Are they really talking about the same entities that we might look at as Sumerian kings that ruled for 10,000 years, in a different age? It's fascinating to see that each culture has common mythologies, but almost like from a different viewpoint sometimes.
Well, it's my contention that, for instance, when we talk about Sumerian culture, is that it's very clear, and this is just my opinion, um, but it was very clear that it was deliberately done. It was that knowledge of that culture was buried, and it was buried in the desert. It was covered up. And during that period, while it was buried, another entity came in and established a belief system. I contend, had the Sumerian tablets never been buried for 3 millennia, you would not have Christianity, you would not have Judaism, you would not have Islam. You would
Mhm.
probably most likely still have Hindu,
Yeah.
Buddha, because Sumerian belief systems recognize the Hindu culture. And in many of the writings, they actually give the Hindu gods different names, Akkadian or Sumerian.
Hmm.
So it clearly establishes for me in my thinking that there is a much bigger players involved here because again, you hid this knowledge of the gods, the pantheon of this structure, um, and you replaced it with a pseudo belief system, which was initially Hebrews. There are no Hebrews anymore, but that eventually degraded into Judaism. And then from Judaism, because Christianity has no history, it had to adapt to a history. It's called topography. And from that, a whole religion from the Holy See was written and invented. Now,
Mhm.
had they known that the Sumerian tablets were out there sitting buried in the desert that challenged those very concepts of beliefs, would that religion had the ability to move forward? I don't think it would have.
Mhm.
I think today we would be living in a much different reality.
Yeah, it gets back to what we were originally talking about too, because I think the great apostasy came about with the Catholic Church. The great falling away, that was the great falling away, because what were the true teachings of Yeshua? If he was teaching about opening up your pineal gland, again, let the light of thine eye be single, your whole body will be filled with light. I and the Father are one. That's self-realization. Source, the real creator is inside you. That's you don't need to go out to anybody. You don't have to learn any dogma. You just got to go within. The kingdom of heaven is within. It's not over there. It's within. It's again all about consciousness. So, they simply, this is again coming from the monarchy, coming from the royals, coming from the power structure that was, this Christianity thing's spreading, but there's all different beliefs. Some believe he's just a teacher, or others that he's a son of God. They were all used to that concept of sons of gods. They knew Zeus had all these offspring with human women. So I mean, it was easy to think of it as, oh, okay, it's another horny Anunnaki picking a human wife, and having offspring. It was in all the mythos from around the world. So, the son of God in that sense, or sons of the gods, that was no big deal. They had seen that before, demigods. We have that in our biblical history too.
Well, the Catholic Church is filled with demigods, and that was just it. When you look at how the first Bible that was the Latin, I'm trying, I can,
The Vulgate.
the Vulgate, yes.
Yeah,
And then you had the Great Schism of 1514, which that's when the Protestants, which were called really protesters,
right.
that was considered the first great falling away. And in a sense, because it divided the church. And today we live in where that religion is concerned, Christianity, you have 33,000 different schisms, different congregational beliefs that say they believe in the same Jesus. It's impossible to do that. I mean,
Mhm.
that's the problem. But today we take it for granted that there was a person named Yahshua. There's no evidence that there ever was any of that. There was no eyewitnesses. But yet it's integrated into the belief system, and that carries over as well as into mysticism, the metaphysical. It's all, as I tell people, if you have a person who's a Satanist, they're a Christian. They're just practicing a different form of Christianity. Because if they didn't have the antithesis of what they so are worshiping, neither one would exist. There would be
Mhm.
no need for it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So now they have to sell us on technocracy.
And
You
they're
know.
doing a good job on it. They are.
Yeah.
People are
I
just they're rolling with it and they're going forward. And how are so many people going to make a living without it? How are you going to make a living if you don't log in with your soul to the internet? It's just the cards are stacked. It's not fair, and I know it's not fair, but I do think that there is something else out there that's going to intervene in a way that we can't foresee yet, that we don't understand yet.
When you were talking about like the new numbers on the pole shift, something just came to me which feels like it's from the guides. Um, the numbers on the pole shift, what would they sell us? Like they're going to introduce us to these other beings. What can they really offer us? They could also come and say, hey, scientifically, we've looked at it, we viewed it about 2040 or 2045. You're going to have full crustal displacement. You're going to have just about everybody wiped out on planet Earth. We could
Heck good,
we
he
we could take
predicted
you up
that.
in our ships. We could relocate you in other planets. We could, you
Well,
know,
what if they are here? What if they are the arcs?
yeah.
I think of the movie Knowing, Nicolas Cage,
Hmm.
Mhm.
that was because that was really the sun novaing,
Yeah.
which it does. I mean, is this what we're talking about? Is this eventually going to be the selection process?
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
could
think
be.
this makes a lot of sense if they tell us you have a deadline before the sun's going to do something that's going to wipe your civilization out, then you're going to have an awful lot of people that are going to be volunteering to go off planet to go maybe in inner Earth. Um, you'll have
Well,
tons of
Jeff
people.
Bezos is spending billions of dollars there in West Texas. He has literally hollowed out a mountain.
Yeah. Let's not forget what's going on with all the data centers. It's not adding up. The math is not mathing. What the heck are they doing? They're taking our resources, the water that humans need for us and our animals to stay alive. That just screams to me there's going to be some big culling. There has to be. If they're going to put the data centers up, and if we are to make the math work and make sense, that means so many of us can't be here, and that's a harsh thought, but that's the math. That's what I keep coming to.
And
Mhm.
that goes into the prediction that in this period of time, 5/3 of the world, 3/4 of it will be, you know,
I know, and and they're
going,
just,
wait a minute, that's a death cult.
yes, that's a coal. And I now with the data centers, so many people are showing up to protest. They've now just put a stamp on it and say, well, this is a military operation, nothing you can do.
Well, Trump
You know,
classified it as a high priority of national security.
Yes, it is.
monkey experiment says, didn't the ant people take the Hopi under? Yeah, and literally, there's many different entities here and around us that do have different beings that they view as family members, that I think would work to save a remnant. So I think that is definitely an ongoing possibility, that you'll have good guys and bad guys trying to save a remnant for their own purposes.
So let me just add one level more to this, and we may go over a little bit, folks, but
Okay.
so we know the Chinese, we know the US, and I'm sure Russia's right there, along with probably other countries. They have decades now into this of developing what they call the super soldier. This is a human that's integrated into whether it's a skeletal structure or whether it's encased, but then operated by an advanced AGI system. So I keep on thinking to myself, so why are you building these? Why are you pushing the boundary of human evolution? And that sounds like alien technology to me. So are we building these soldiers for these aliens? Is this what we're talking about? Is it possible, much like we've been told that, we're already going to other planets? We're already aboard these alien ships that we have sent so many soldiers off. Is this what's happening? To me, No matter what scenario, I'm not seeing a Woodstock scenario coming out of
Right,
this. I'm just
right.
not. I try. I
Yeah.
mean, listen, I think it would be great if you could sit back and, really chill out with the alien, you know? So tell me, what is it really like to be in Jupiter and Mars, you know?
Yeah.
I don't see that
There,
happening.
I don't necessarily on a broad spectrum either, but I have seen beings that are curious about us and that just want to come in to speak, come in to talk. So I have had those times at night where there are beings and they just want to know a little more. They're science like, and they want to just get the vibe of a human. Like, what do you really think? There are those curious ones out there,
Mhm.
and maybe they're one off, but I think there could be moments like that where yeah, there could be an alien sitting next to you just wanting to know what was it like on Earth for the last 50 years. I don't think that's completely out of the ballpark. It's possible. If it's something perceivable, it's something possible. So I think we're in for a lot of surprises, and most of them probably are not very good at all. I can't find the kumbaya or Woodstock in it either. But I do think there'll be those shining moments where humans are good to each other and they help each other, and maybe certain alien species do come in to help in some way, shape, or form. And that might be what we look forward to. That might be what we live for, is look for the good. Keep looking for the good, no matter how bad it gets. The only control you have is control over yourself and your perception. So keep looking for the good. That's what I would do in a really bad situation. And if everything were really bad, I just keep looking for the good. What else can you do?
Um, my belief system is that I believe the vast majority of humans never make access to the spiritual allies that they have.
Mhm.
And I have always been on this quest to attract and assimilate or assemble as many. It, in my former religion, it would have been angels because I was endued with power from on high by the Holy Spirit. Therefore, I had that ability that other humans did not have by commanding the angels. So, as I have now come from the other side of the fence, so to speak, um, I believe that there's those of us who literally will have the spirits that if the shit hits the fan, so to speak, they're going to be there.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about with the daemon. A daemon is really a guardian, a protective spirit. And so
Mhm.
I'm laying down last night and I couldn't sleep because I'm thinking to myself, where I read the one scroll that said that all human souls have many other spirits occupying the body,
Mhm.
and that they influence the emotions that we have. You may
Mhm.
have seen a person who had an outburst of anger, and you say, well, that's not like that person.
Mhm.
Well, that was evidence of another spirit that was pressing or influence on that type. So I just extrapolate from that and going, so there are humans, and I think shamans, I think witches, are those individuals who have assembled a vast majority of allies in the interdimensional spiritual realm.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what the church tried to do, is to cut us off from that.
Yes.
That was their main thing, is cutting us off from that. And I always go back to when I was probably about 19 or 20. I did a ritual, and it was to the goddess and the divine feminine. First time I ever did it,
Mm.
immediately got an answer. Immediately, and it blew my mind. I mean, it was literally at midnight, and a cat came and knocked on the door. Cat literally jumped on the door, got the dogs to wake up. I opened it up, it just meowed at me, and it took off. And I knew it was somebody jumping in the
Love it.
cat to give me the
Yeah.
thumbs up that you did it. We could hear you. And we've had so many times communicating with our guides that they just come through like that. We'll get birds all of a sudden in the window trying to get your attention like crazy. Again, they use animals a lot like that. to come and give us,
And
a thumbs up. Yeah, absolutely. You know,
I
they,
do that same thing here. We saw, we have a turkey. She's a beautiful turkey. I mean, she stands almost like 4.5 feet tall.
wow.
wow.
And then last evening, we're out on the deck, and here come the deer with their fawns. And, to me, Lynn and I share this thing that when we see a bluebird, we know that's the spirits talking to us. And so we were outside the other day, and there came this beautiful solid blue bird. So, and I saw y'all's video with your visitor on the security cam.
Yeah.
Oh,
What the hell's up with that?
why do you get these nice, pretty angels? Look
I'm
what we
going,
get. Look what we get. And we
Yeah.
it's
get a
like,
lot
what
of them.
the hell?
It came back 2 nights in a row. Now we haven't seen it the last couple of nights,
It's
but
been
I
here.
felt something last night. Um, lying in bed, I was just starting to drift off, and all of a sudden I was seeing red in my third eye and something black moving and coming into our doorway. That was just my third eye. So it has the chicken go crazy. I
Sorry.
said to Cindy, "Did you feel anything? Did you sense anything?" And she picked up an entity. And then I realized, oh, I didn't turn off the router. So I went and turned off the Wi-Fi, and it was quiet, and we slept soundly. So, but again, I think that the technology is literally like highways for these entities to go through.
Well,
So have
yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Wayne.
go ahead, Cindy.
Well, that thing that keeps coming around, it does go in and out the front door because we keep catching it on the camera. It's the third or fourth time now. And we've caught something very strange coming out of our storage unit in the back off the camera. The door opens and you can see this black leg step out. It was very tangible. It was very thick. And I
And
think
it
it's the
literally
same
opens
being.
up a door that you have to
You have to turn the knob.
you have to hold the knob really firm and turn.
And that door flew open. And then even before that, when we very first moved here, Mike had these stacks of hay in the backyard. He was playing with his
I was
archery.
doing some bow and arrow.
Archery. And I'm just watching the camera, and then all of a sudden these like stacks of hay just get shoved over like it was angry. And I'm like, did you see that? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, those are heavy bales.
And we played it back on the camera, and you just see there's no wind. It just got knocked over.
Got knocked over. So it has not brought harm to us. I don't think it means to bring harm. I think it belongs on the land. I think it's here as an advisor, as a protector of sorts, and I think it allows us to live here. I think if it were other people, it wouldn't go too well here. We do live on mounds. We didn't put the house on here knowing that there were mounds, but we found later, after other people put the house where we're at, that you could walk in the front yard and find arrowheads.
Yeah.
And there's a sacred mound about, how far is that away? It's
probably about a third of the mile.
About a third of a mile.
There's literally there's a plaque there which tells you that these are sacred sites.
Yeah.
In the backyard, there's 2 mounds that have a different vibe
I just
to
wish
them.
it was pretty and white like yours, Wayne.
Someone, by the way, I think that may be going on national television.
Whoa.
That
Wow.
yeah, it
Yeah.
apparently others have looked at that and they've done their analysis, and yeah, there was something happening. There was a portal open, as one person wrote, and the being yeah, was actually someone, and they wrote back and said it's been verified that this was a spiritual entity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I want things like yours, not like the dark demons that come running in and out my door. It's like, come on.
So have y'all tried just making a peace offering for the spirits there? Like
We
laying out
do.
some fruit or
We
honey?
do that. That's a daily part of our regular routine.
Okay, cool. I
think
figured,
it helps. I think
Yeah.
it helps that we do put out the fruit and we do speak to it, and we do have a level of respect. And I think for that, we get to live here.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I
Yeah.
always talk to the elementals too, because they're very real.
Yeah,
So,
they're
you
real.
know, whenever we plant stuff, I'll always be doing mantras, and then I'll talk to them and ask for their blessings and guidance. And, you know, this year so far, everything is growing really well. So we've done quite a bit of planting. I plan on doing a lot more. She's always like trying to reel me back a little bit, like, don't bite off so much right now, because we have so many irons in the fire all the time.
too many
I'm a
irons in
double
the fire.
Gemini, so it's like I got to be busy, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Keeps that forge. You have to keep it hot, right? It's like,
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's great to ground and root with nature and just to be in nature. So we've
yeah, it
been
is.
we've been out there like 5, 6 hours every day doing our thing, and it's a blessing. It really, really, time goes differently when you're out in nature. Totally different.
A lot of people don't have that opportunity. I mean, it's like the city east of us, St. Louis. I mean, if you watch the daily news, it's a body count, you know, and it's sad because it so much is affecting the youth that, life has been diminished in their perception and their auras that they just it's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see, like, if you look at pictures from people in the 70s, kids in the 70s, and then pictures now, you can see the aura is leaving the human being. I mean, unless you're building it on purpose every day, I think it weakens. So unless you're doing prayer, you're doing some kind of practice to build your spirit, I think it just simply depletes with the diet that we have and the technology. So if you're plugged into technology 3 hours a day, you got to spend some time building your aura back up, because I think it kind of chews
I
away
think it
at your
sucks it.
Wei Chi field. And we just
Yeah,
did a
absolutely.
video about that too, about the Wei
That's
Chi field, how
yeah.
important it is.
It's light. Yeah, light is so important. Sound is so important. When we do mantras, we speak them, and they're in Sanskrit, so they're very powerful, and they're coming from the time before the Kali Yuga and the whole system being put into place. I think it's a connection to our past in the last Bronze Age before the darkness took fully over. So it's really interesting too that how come India is the way it is, and it's like it's some sort of agreement. How does Hinduism still survive when so many other systems didn't? Um, and it's really the antithesis of dogmatic, because
Yes, it is.
anything goes, it's just anything goes. It's do your own thing, your own way,
Do
you
as
know.
thy will. I mean,
Yeah.
that is the expression of free will. Do as thy
Yep.
Hmm.
will. And
Hmm.
if we are gods, then
Hmm.
Yeah. But I do think they're going to tempt us. They're going to tempt us to stay within the system, and they're going to keep offering new carrots to dangle. Just, again, new rewards. Oh, yeah, stay in the system. Look at this. You don't have to ever carry a key anymore. You'll just swipe your palm or whatever, and your car will turn on, your front door will
Oh,
open.
speaking of cars, not to mention the 2027 cars coming with the kill switch.
yeah, I had no doubt out of
You
that.
know,
I mean,
yeah, no, we're done for. If and they're making the older cars more and more illegal to even drive unless you're driving it for a show or on the weekend between the hours of 10 and 12. I don't know. They're just making ridiculous laws so that we can't drive the older cars. I mean, you can see the writing is on the wall. It is. It is. And some people, which I think a lot about, those that are kind of paralyzed in the big cities,
Mhm.
they just, they have obligations. They can't leave. Maybe it's financial, maybe it's family, but they can't go. And now is the time of reckoning with your soul and yourself. It's like, okay, what do you want to do? And somebody asked, when is this going to happen? And I believe when it, it the when they they introduce us to the reptilians, I think it's going to be this summer. I'm thinking around June or July is what I'm thinking, just, looking at the planetary alignments and whatnot.
It feels like it. There's a lot coming. I think
Okay. See you.
May might be relatively quiet, but June through August won't be. That's going to be a very tumultuous period there. And if we're looking at the bigger time frame, which again, timelines can always change, and we're always shifting timelines constantly. I do think I go back to when Cindy had channeled the kids from the future. It was they were sitting in 2055, and they said it was about 2035 that the giants came and took over charge of the smart cities. So the whole concept of the smart cities is herding the cattle into a manageable place. Get them into a spot where we got them all gathered as much as possible, and then they could do whatever it is. See if they want to offer the chance to go off world or whatever it is, certain technology and blessings. It's going to be easier to keep track of the sheep when they're all herded inside the electronic fence. But that's 2035. Here we have 2026. That's 9 years between
Goes by quick.
introducing somebody that's not us and them literally taking over the cell cities. And then when would the big sun sneeze come? Or what we get is that there's just going to be a increasing escalation of these sun sneezes, which will really lead to more and more of the big earth changes. But we were getting originally around 2045, 2040, 2045 being that period of real radical earth changes. So, we still got time. We still have time to prepare, but then the whole concept comes in. What about the ascension process and those that are able to fully ascend? Do you have to shed the body, or can you take it and just have it transform? Yeah, that's something that I don't know. Yeah.
I the only way that they could tempt me is that they would have to manifest a car owned in 1972, which was a Grand Prix. And
Nice, nice.
yeah, it was. I tell you what,
Yeah.
now I may talk to them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, 65, 64 to like
Mm.
73. What an era in cars.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
also owned a 69 Barracuda.
Oh,
And
that's beautiful.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It was
What
nice.
color was it?
It was actually this midnight green, kind of a
Mhm.
dark. It came from the factory like that. But
Wow.
between that and the Grand, I got yeah, it had a lot of sex. I'll put it that way. So, anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's part of the journey. Well, y'all, it's been fun again. I mean, and I have no idea if it continues like this n next week. I mean, what? Uh, it's changing so quickly. It's like, okay, fine.
You know what I keep seeing through this whole video, and I just have to say it because I keep seeing it over and over, is I keep seeing ant people. I keep seeing ant people. And I don't know if they're going to play a part in this, but they've been kind of injecting themselves during our talk here. And if I don't say something, I don't know. It's just they're just going to keep showing up until I say something. They're part of this. I don't know how, but they're going to be part of it. And I think they have assisted people in the past through tumultuous times. And I think they're possibly responsible for a lot of the mountains and the living spaces that we have found, like over in Turkey, where
Yeah,
they
totally.
have just somehow they burrowed these homes out for humans. They're involved somewhere. They're involved somewhere. I feel
Daring
it.
Kiu,
See it.
yeah, there's literally tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people that could live there. I think the guides were happiest when we were in New Mexico. It felt like a dictatorship with the plague upon the land, and we didn't like the vibe there from the governor.
Yeah,
The lockdown was so severe. But
she was
I
a
think
nasty one.
when
It
we
was
were
bad.
there and Cindy was really at some of her weakest, going through health challenges. She was also channeling the most. And they were giving us a lot of information. There's certain places that's easier for them to bring you into the inner earth, and show you, and New Mexico Four Corners area, I think is one of the better spots, but there's different challenges anywhere you go. This is also why I think they've fracked that area so much to create these now landmines, for people that are going to there thinking it's safe. Look at Hurricane Helene. I think Appalachia, Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, and Northern Georgia, great area, for homesteading and surviving through the craziness. But then they steer, in my opinion, they steered a hurricane and had it sit there and flooded everybody out. So
Yeah.
the areas that they know are prime, good areas to be, they'll always target them extra hard.
Well, we just speak favor to the ant civilization. That's
Let's
what
do
it
it.
is. It's like
Let's
peace,
do
man.
it.
It's like,
Yes.
like
Yes.
live and let live. That's the way I always look at
Yes.
it. So,
Yes. I like it.
well, this has been fun. Thank you both. And next week, I look forward to it because it's like you get the weekly what we talk about is because of the ever-changing reality that we see before us. And I have no doubt if they're going to make this the big announcement, and Trump loves those big cliches. So
Yes, he
yeah,
does.
I'm just going
He
to be,
does.
mm,
Well,
yeah,
a lot of people, just really quick, a lot of people are looking at the White House and all the gold in the White House saying, that's our third temple right there. Mm.
Yeah, I saw people talking about the ballrooms. Really, they're going to be the third temple or something. You get all this different stuff coming out of the woodwork. It's fun times.
it is. I think I'd rather be outside mowing or
Me
planting.
too. Me
Yeah,
too. That's what I'm going to go do next.
yeah, that's where I'm heading. All right, everybody. Thank y'all.
Fine.
Thank you both. It's just I love this. It's stimulating. It's what it
It
is. It's
is.
stimulating
Yes.
conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes. Thanks,
it is.
We
everybody. And then
always look forward to our Thor's Day with you.
we love our
Well,
Our
Wayne's
Wayne's
Day.
Day on
yeah,
Thursday.
Thor's. I dig Thor. I mean, if, I, a cat with a hammer like that, yeah, I can get behind that.
Yep.
All right, y'all. See you next week.
You
Thank you
will.
all. Make sure you hit the like button on both channels. I know y'all put this on replay over there on Ohm Hearts or one of the others, but I put the link below for the channel. And if you're not subscribed, subscribe. Show a little love. It always helps. Keeps your karmatic bank, where you want it to be, in the positive ledger. Yeah. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
All right. Much love, everyone. We will
Much love.
see you again when we do. All right.
You will.
Namaste.
Thanks. Namaste.